Depression and anxiety are those things that creep up out of nowhere, and before you know it, you're completely lost in the darkness. Up until about 2 years ago, I lived my entire life in this false narrative. I remember accepting Jesus into my heart as a young girl, maybe 6 years old, sitting on our stairs with my mom and my grandma, not really fully understanding what that meant. So my mom worked at the church, and I knew every nook and cranny of that building, and it all worked until the summer of 1989. At 10 years old, I was sexually abused. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't know how to. I continued to play this role of church kid. All the while, I couldn't talk about my abuse. So I convinced myself that if I surrounded myself with light, I wouldn't have to confront this darkness that was growing inside of me. In high school, those shadows continued to stalk me. Fear, depression, suicidal thoughts, just wanting to give up. But I covered it. I covered it in this thin veneer of fineness. You wouldn't have known from the outside that internally, my world was just falling apart. Shame, screaming that I'm a fraud and that I would never measure up. I had my secrets. I came to find out that my family had its secrets too. My parents' marriage had been wrought with betrayal, and spring of my senior year of high school, I vividly remember my dad coming upstairs to tell me he was moving out. He was going to live with another woman. My entire world started to fall apart. Fast forward, August 5th, 2014, this thin veneer began to crumble. My faith began to unravel. I'd been working at this church for almost 9 years. It was a dream job. During a reorg, my role was eliminated. This was a place where I had met my husband. We got married there. Our kids were born there. It was all of a sudden gone. My identity as this great Christian failed me. And I felt as if God had failed me. It was 2 years of panic attacks, suicidal thoughts. It was in that darkness that I lost my childhood God. My screams became my prayers. My curse words were calls back to God. And I met this God that had been walking with me the entire time. That he'd been with me in the abuse. That he'd been with me in the darkness, in the depression, in the pain. And he brought people to walk alongside me on this journey towards healing. And I found church in living rooms, in coffee shops, in my therapist's office. Now I know that my identity is in God. I'm his beloved. I'm learning to rest in the knowledge that I belong to Christ. And that's enough. And I don't have to have it all figured out. I can start to tell my story not from a place of shame, but from a place of belovedness and acknowledging that I'm enough and that I can live my whole story, both the light and the dark.